got the cornfield calm, Midwest tone, but he's spitting facts like a dog with a bone. Lanky frame, fire-haired, eyes on the case, breaking down the game and the darkest place. Sports scores to murder boards, Hoosier logic cuts like swords. From Friday lights to chalked out lines, this redhead's brain rewrites the lines. Inside the Hoosier mind, where the stories twist and stats unwind. He's a legend in flannel, mic in hand, digging deep where few can stand. From touchdowns to crime scenes raw, he's got the truth in every draw. Yeah, step in if you dare to find what's brewing inside the Hoosier mind. He'll talk Pacers, Colts, or Colts on trial. Hoosier humor with a devilish smile. He's that redhead sleuth with a box of clues. Takes your headline, breaks the news. With every stat and every scream, he's painting portraits in your stream. Don't blink, he'll tie it tight. From game night wins to murder fight. Inside the Hoosier mind, where the facts hit hard and the lines are blind. He's a ginger ninja, smooth and slick, cracking cases play by play quick. From courtrooms to the hardwood floor, he digs for more than just the score. Tune in and don't rewind, you're deep now inside the Hoosier mind.
All right, what's up, everyone? Welcome into Inside the Hoosier Mind, brought to you by Military Broadcast Radio, helping give veterans a voice, as well as Gunfighter Beard Co. He's a Marine out of South Carolina who uses all natural products. He gets them all here in the U.S. He ships here in the U.S. I know I cut my beard. If you watch the show pretty regularly, my beard isn't down to my chest anymore. But nonetheless, he has a lot of great beard products, a lot of great stuff. And like I said, definitely check out Military Broadcast Radio. There's a little QR code here to, it would be your right. It's also my right, but it looks like the left probably on this. Check that out if you want to learn more about Military Broadcast Radio, all of our great veteran hosts, all of the great things about the organization as a whole, what it does for veterans as far as telling their stories, getting the equipment to be able to tell their stories, getting them set up with all the cool graphics, everything that we use. So definitely check that out, that little QR code, or just search mbradio.us and you can definitely check them out there. But we are back. It is hot. It is in about the middle of July, which means we are about 6 weeks away from college football as well as the NFL. But primarily my personal favorite being college football. And with that, I decided to come up with a series of college football for dummies. And this is supposed to be something that if you know someone, or if you're friends with someone that they are a just absolute college sports nut, especially when it comes to football and football season, you wonder, why can't we go to any, fall weddings in October, November on Saturdays? Well, it's because there's more important things like college football about, and especially big time matchups. So that's what I decided to make this series about, is covering all of that, all the way from the very basics of as far as what the offense is, how the offense works, the defense, the special teams, and then I started to move into the conferences. I started alphabetically, so I went with the ACC, I went with the Big 10. Last week I did the Big 12, and now this week for the Power 4 conferences, I'm doing the SEC. One of the other big boy giant conferences that essentially runs college football. And if you know anybody or you're friends with anybody that's a big fan of college football, you'll have probably heard or know the SEC dominated college football now for probably close to the last 20-ish years. A good majority of the national champions came out of the SEC. My LSU Tigers having won 3 of those. Florida won a couple. Georgia has won a couple. Alabama has won a ton, unfortunately, as is the case. Auburn won one in there. But nonetheless, it's a fun conference. It's a very deep conference. It's a conference that has a ton of history, has a ton of tradition. It has a ton of rivalries that go in along with it. And I know I live in Indiana. I live in Big Ten country. I grew up watching the Big Ten. I still enjoy the Big Ten, but nonetheless, I still enjoy it. Joy, I heard Johnny Contra. Yes, exactly. But nonetheless, though, let's get into the history of the SEC. Where did the SEC come from? When was it first founded? It is not the oldest, but it is old. It's older. It is the second oldest, just behind the Big Ten. The SEC was founded in 1932, so it turns 94 this year. They do have 16 teams, and they recently, well, not recently, but they did a lot of their expansion, as far as big expansion, all the way back in the 90s when they brought in Arkansas, as well as they also brought in the University of South Carolina. And then they didn't expand again, all the way until 2012. So they went a long time. A lot of their founding members are still with the conference. Now, they did have a few that, believe it or not, actually left. Georgia Tech was a founding member. They left in 1964. Swanee, the University of the South in Tennessee, they were also a founding member, but they left in 1940. And then Tulane, the Mean Green Wave, they left in 1966. So those are the only three. So that's also where, and I'll get into this a little bit later when I start talking about the rivalries. But this is why, if you're ever watching an SEC game and one of the big matchups, it's usually one of the last games of the year is Georgia Tech versus Georgia. It's because technically they did used to be in the same conference. Now they do obviously share the same state. They've continued that rivalry ever since. But nonetheless, Georgia Tech was a former member that has left. And then since then, the conference stayed pretty much the same. Alabama was in 1932, so was Auburn, Florida, Georgia, Kentucky, my school, LSU, University of Mississippi, aka Ole Miss, Mississippi State, and then the University of Tennessee and Vanderbilt. So like I said, they ended up adding the University of Arkansas in 1991 when the Southwestern Conference was kind of a little bit iffy. Arkansas, I talked about this in the last episode with the Big 12, but to give a little bit of a recap, Arkansas was kind of always the odd man out in the Southwestern Conference because they were the only non-Texas school in the conference. So they were kind of left out. They were like, yeah, we want to go somewhere else. They actually already had a lot of natural rivalries in the SEC to start with, especially with LSU. They could have it with Mississippi, Alabama, Tennessee, all of them. So it just seemed like an overall natural, better fit for them. And then one team that joined that was a little bit of a surprise was the University of South Carolina, the Gamecocks, the quote-unquote original USC, because technically it is older than the University of Southern California. Just saying, just throwing it out there. It is older than quote-unquote USC for all my college football fans out there. Joy, I know, lives in Louisiana, so she roots for the Tigers, and she said go Hogs. Ooh. I know I'm technically allowed to say it because I do have a degree from the University of Arkansas, and I'm working on a degree currently from Louisiana State University, LSU. So, Joy, you gotta tell me the story of why you also say go Hogs as well as go Tigers. So you gotta tell me that rivalry in the comments. So they didn't expand again from 91. They expanded again in 2012. Now, there was a few rumors as far as who they were trying to get. Were they trying to get a few other teams? Again, as conferences started to get a little bit rocking, a little bit iffy, as they kind of do every few years as far as new media rights deals, as far as people kind of being unhappy with revenue distribution and whatnot from those media rights deals and whatnot. So some of these conferences get real iffy. Oh, you have Arkansas roots, Joy. Okay, that's awesome. I will say I drove through Arkansas when I was leaving DC, getting stationed down in Texas for my medic school, and it is a pretty state, but it's very, very long to have to go through. But I didn't mind Arkansas, and I have a pretty good friend. He's from Arkansas, and I remember he's a huge fan of the pigs. But they decided to have the University of Missouri or Mizzou in 2012, as well as Texas A&M. And Texas A&M was kind of the big one because they were leaving the Big 12, and it was kind of that weird moment of, do they stay in the Big 12 or do they go somewhere else? Because part of it, the rumor is they wanted to get away from the University of Texas. Like I said, the SEC is very, very rooted in a lot of deep deep hatred and deep rivalries with us. Us talking. Appreciate you tuning in. Some parts are beautiful. I kind of think that way about a lot of states. Like I think Arkansas could be pretty. I mean, I know it's a flyover flat state. I think parts of Indiana are very pretty, but again, some people might argue that. I know there's some people who are more fans of like mountains or the ocean or beaches or stuff like that. So I definitely get it. Um, but nonetheless, though, there is a theory that Texas A&M wanted to get away from Texas, so they decided to join the SEC. And again, they didn't expand really at all from any point moving forward, all the way up until 2024. 2024 is when we probably saw the biggest expansion and a whole lot of moves for the first time since about 2014. Yeah, about 2014 with a Big East, which is still a basketball conference in college, but is no longer a football conference. When it dissolved, there was another massive movement, but not nearly to the effect of when the Pac 12 dissolved. Technically, the Pac 12 is still around, but pretty much almost all of its original teams, except for two, left to go to other conferences. But in 2024, two teams decided to leave the Big 12. That was Texas and that was Oklahoma. And it was kind of a big blow to the Big 12 because that was two of their biggest brands. The SEC was getting really two major bumps. They were getting the fact that they were getting two big major brands that were almost always considered national contenders. They were two big brands that have never had any trouble as far as recruiting in high school or recruiting people to come play for them in the transfer portal if they feel that they're not getting enough starting time, if they feel that, hey, I've been sitting here on the bench for 2 years at this school, when am I going to get my turn? They could potentially come there, fill in any spots. They could potentially come in and be a starter. So they were really good brands, really good money-making brands to come over. They got the invite, and they ended up joining in 2024. And so with all of that, the SEC now has 16 teams. So they're not the biggest, but they are a pretty considerably sized conference. And kind of the really cool thing, and I'll actually bring it up here on screen. So if you can't see, unfortunately, I would definitely say check out YouTube because I'm going to upload this on YouTube shortly after this is done. So if you look here on the map, let's see if I can blow this up or make this bigger. Here we go. Okay, so if you see where all of these blue dots are, these are all different schools that are in the SEC. You have Alabama, you've got Arkansas, you've got Auburn, you've got LSU, Texas A&M, Texas, Florida, South Carolina, Georgia. I believe this is Tennessee. You have Tennessee, Vandy, because they're closer to Nashville, Kentucky. This is Ole Miss, and then this is Mississippi State, and then, of course, LSU and Mizzou, and then Oklahoma. So, like I said, they're pretty substantial, and they make a good amount of money, and they have a lot of quality teams, and they've produced a ton of quality players over the years. You might hear this again, depending on who you know or who you're with that potentially likes and follows college football a lot. The last 3 years, the Big Ten has won the national championship. Prior to that, it was almost exclusively just the SEC. There's a couple times where Clemson won it. There's a Florida State win in there. Ohio State did manage to win one in there. But other than that, it has almost exclusively been just the SEC winning the national title here within the last 20 years. Now, obviously, the biggest exception being within the last three, the SEC has unfortunately fallen short now in the NIL era. Now, there's a lot of rumors and speculations as to why. There's a lot of rumors, and a lot of coaches and a lot of people kind of get uncomfortable when this is brought up. There are rumors that the SEC was paying players prior to the name, image, and likeness, or the NIL era that is today. Now that it is legal for that to happen across everywhere in the country, and now the argument is because these Big Ten schools who have a ton of money, who have a lot of alumni, who are successful and donate to their schools, now that they can pay, the playing field has now shifted to the Big Ten, or honestly, in my opinion, it's become just a little bit more even. Now you don't have the Georgias and the Bamas having 3 and 4 5-star product prospects, deep in the roster. Like, oh, if one starter goes down, we have a guy that's ridiculously talented and good that can just immediately come in and immediately fill the shoes. Joy, yeah, so weird. I don't like it, and it is kind of weird. It's one of those that there's some people that they get uncomfortable and they don't like the idea of like conference pride of like, and I do get it, and it is kind of weird because of the SEC's roots and their traditions and how deep some of these rivalries extend, that there is a conference pride. Like if I'm like, I'll be completely honest, whenever Alabama's in the playoffs, I'm like, man, I want y'all to be a first round exit so bad. Like for anybody who doesn't know, I have never been a fan of the University of Alabama, like ever. I have friends that go to the University of Alabama. I have classmates that I went to high school with. They graduated. They went to Alabama. They got their degree from Bama. Of course, they love Bama. And for me, I've never been a fan. I've never been a fan of Bama. I've never really cared for some of the crazy fanatics that come out of Bama. And honestly, you could make that argument for each and every single fan base of any school, any team across any sport. But Bama, just in particular, joy, roll tide. It is funny. I do have one of my favorite gifts is actually somebody decided to take the Tide laundry bottles and roll them, and it says "Roll Tide, Roll." That's probably my absolute favorite gift that I love to use to troll Alabama fans. Is that specific gif? But the SEC is weird with the whole like conference pride, because I feel like more now, because there's such a, we need to prove that we are still the elite conference, that we can still keep up with the Big Ten, that they've like shifted to this conference pride thing of like, oh, well, we're still the SEC, we're still the best. I'm like, that's, again, just because of some of the rivalries and how deep these rivalries go and how intertwined this conference is. To me, it's weird. And I will say, too, to kind of go back into the history and kind of the setup of the SEC, for the longest time, the SEC would only do 8 conference games. So basically, they would have 8 games on their schedule out of 12 when they moved up to 12, which means they would have 8 SEC opponents that they would go up against and they would play every single year. Now, when it was small enough, you could basically rotate through everybody pretty evenly. You might have a couple one-offs here and there where you wouldn't face the entire conference. And then as it expanded, then as it continued to grow, that has kind of moved away. Now they're moving into, I believe, if I remember correctly, the terminology they use, it's like groupings. So basically, one SEC team will have 3 opponents that they will play every single year consistently, and that's kind of more to keep the idea of these bigger mainstream rivalries going. So, for example, like Texas, I believe their 3 are Texas A&M, Oklahoma, and I believe the third is Arkansas, but I might be 100% wrong on that. One big rivalry, for example, that's probably not going to happen as frequently anymore is LSU versus Alabama every single year. And even though it's not the oldest rivalry, it is a rivalry that has gone on for a long time. And it's unfortunate because it's not going to happen every single year starting next year. Now they're going to play each other, I believe, every other year as far as how the rotation goes. But it is just kind of unfortunate. And so with that, these rivalries and these games have always been so tight and so close. And again, that's where a lot of the hatred comes in, is because, like, man, we have to face these guys every single year. And if you ever go onto social media and if you ever see them interview, who's the most annoying fans of the SEC, I've heard Tennessee, I've heard LSU, I've heard Bama, I've heard Georgia, I've heard some Texas A&M, depending on where you live at. I've heard some from Auburn. There's probably bigger schools that you don't really hear anything bad about their fans. Like, I don't really hear anything bad about Kentucky very often. I don't hear anything bad about Arkansas. South Carolina, I don't hear much about. Vandy, even though Vanderbilt just recently became like really, really good, or at least in a couple years they've become really, really good. you just don't hear as much anymore about it. But nonetheless, though, we'll move into the rivalry portion of it. Probably one of my favorite parts of it, because again, these rivalries are so old; they happen every single year, and this is what, if I had to really put into words kind of the magic that comes with college football, it's kind of the pride you get of bragging rights of my team beat this team, and I can't stand that team. I can't stand that school. I can't stand the stuff that they do. Like I said with Alabama, I hate the whole roll tide thing. Like roll tide, roll. And it was funny because there used to be a joke that I could always hear all the time. It was like, oh, it's like, oh, where are you from? Oh, I'm from Alabama. Roll Tide. Nope, I didn't need to hear the Roll Tide part, but okay. Now that tells me everything I need to know about you. Um, and honestly, probably the best part about this, and as far as the best joke, is there's ever anything about, like families doing inappropriate things with like other family members consensually. Let me throw that out there, consensually. As far as like cousins, brother, sister, or whatever you want to go into. Again, this is a joke. It's a joke. Um, the first immediate reaction that a lot of people have, or at least that I have, is roll tide. So, yeah, that's what I always find funny. I actually said that to my nephew one time. I think our uncle was telling us a story. This guy in a um, this guy in an apartment complex that he takes care of. I believe he said was married to his first cousin, first or second cousin, nonetheless. I was like, yeah, there's too much blood in that water for it to be comfortable for me. And the first words out of my mouth was roll tide, and my nephew just absolutely lost it. He just absolutely lost it, and I'm one of those people, like if I can get somebody to have a really good laugh, it makes me laugh just as much. Enjoy commented. Taylor Green, he was really good at Arkansas last year. I liked him. As one of our clients bought $1 million home here near Dallas before he graduated. That's awesome. I remember watching him last year, and I loved watching him play. When I found out that he was a senior and that he was going to have to graduate, I was like, man, I would love to see Taylor Green like take one more step forward, like any contender. Honestly, like I wouldn't have been happy if he went to Alabama because he would probably do extremely well. But watching him with what he was able to do at Arkansas, with what he had, he was extremely electric and fun to watch. And it's going to sound mean. It's one of those, I don't understand why Cleveland drafted him because of their whole quarterback mess. But hey, if he ends up coming out and winning this starting job over Shador, over Deshaun, over Dylan Gabriel, I won't be upset because I watched the kid in college. I thought Taylor Green was absolutely fantastic. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say he's like first round pick, but he's absolutely a great quarterback. But let's get into some of the SEC rivalries here. So again, these aren't all of them. These are a majority of them. They even did a ranking. CBS Sports did back in 2024, right when the day before Texas and Oklahoma were actually scheduled to join the SEC, because they joined July 1st of 2024. So a little bit over 2 years ago to the day. And they decided to rank some of the biggest SEC rivalries and how they kind of pan out as compared to some of the other ones. So the first one CBS Sports they had Texas versus Oklahoma, the Red River rivalry. You've even heard, Red River Shootout, which kind of depends on I think who's broadcasting it, how they kind of want to portray it more than anything. It is a huge rivalry in college football. This is one of those. The Red River rivalry of Texas versus Oklahoma, that usually happens in October. So that's, again, if you have friends that are hosting a fall wedding and it falls on that day, your significant other is probably either going to be super upset or watching their phone the entire time. Same with whoever is getting married, might also be upset that they're getting married if they're a college football fan in October, just specifically for this game. A little bit of a fun fact about it: neither team has won more than 4 consecutive games in the rivalry since 2004. So basically, Texas hasn't won more than 4 times. Oklahoma hasn't won more than 4 times. Now, again, this was also a couple years ago, but Texas does lead the all-time series currently with over 60 wins to Oklahoma's over 50 losses. The second one, and it's actually the first here on the sheet, Alabama versus Auburn, aka the Iron Bowl. This is an absolute is a big one because one of the few teams that could truly stop the coach that everybody considers the GOAT or the greatest of all time, and Nick Saban. That was one of the places he used to struggle with a lot. And even if you watch College Game Day with Nick Saban as he talks about this, one of the things he mentions is he does believe that Auburn Stadium is haunted, that there's some type of voodoo ghost magic there because Alabama would always struggle against Auburn. And it doesn't matter. That's kind of the great thing about rivalries, and especially in the SEC, when it's a big time rivalry like Alabama versus Auburn, Texas versus Oklahoma. It doesn't matter what the rankings are. If Alabama's ranked the number 1 team in the country and Auburn's ranked, the worst team in the country, it will be an absolute fight and it will be absolutely close. And there could be an upset at any point in time and any given point. There could be an upset in these rivalries. And again, that's kind of the most fun thing of think of it. And again, if you don't like boxing, I'm trying to make the best comparison I can. Think of it kind of like if you buy like a mystery box item, right? If you purchase something from a store and they offer like, oh yeah, here you're going to get a free mystery item with your order. You're like, ooh, what is it? Could it be this? Could it be this? Could it be this? You just don't know. That's kind of the magic and the excitement of it. That's how it is for rivalry games for college football fans. I'm like, ooh, how is this game going to end? Who is going to potentially win this game? Because again, a lot of times, depending on if the teams are really good, if one's really good and one's really bad, it can have a lot of implications for if the really bad team beats the really good team. Or if they're both really good, it could potentially be kind of like a knockout punch of like, if we win and you lose, you're potentially going to be out and we're going to move forward. And sometimes that happens too, of like, we're just going to play spoiler because we don't want you to continue to move forward. Now, one that, believe it or not, I don't think gets as much attention because neither team is. They were big. One team was actually big last year because they were able to make a playoff run. And a pretty good one at that. One of the first times they've been able to do that. But it's a game that I feel doesn't get the attention. I'm not going to say that maybe it deserves, but it doesn't get the attention just because of the brands that are in it. And that's Mississippi State versus Ole Miss, aka the Egg Bowl. Again, it's the Battle of Mississippi. It's one of those that Mississippi State, not historically the greatest school as far as competing. Ole Miss, especially more recently, has been more on the up and up, but it's not exactly the biggest, I would say, sexiest, draw of like, oh, college football's on. What's on? Oh, the Egg Bowl. Like it's really only big if you like have a stake in either one of those teams. Like if you're a fan of Ole Miss or if you're a fan of Mississippi State, then you want to watch it. Otherwise, it's just kind of it's another potentially good game, maybe not, that's on there, and we'll rock with it kind of thing. Florida versus Georgia. This is one that happens all the time. I'm going to be honest. There is a trophy name to this. I'm not even going to try to enunciate that because it's something or trophy. And if I butcher this, I'm going to look like an absolute goober, so I'm not going to do that. Apparently, one of the other names that is called those the world's largest outdoor cocktail party. It takes place in a neutral site in Florida, and it is an absolute very heated rivalry for an extremely long time, and it's kind of been one-sided here of lately because Georgia has won a majority of the matchups here of lately. Another one, we have Auburn versus Georgia. It's supposed to be the Deep South's oldest rival. It says, as the nickname suggests, there's a considerable history between the two. It's tied with North Carolina and Virginia as the South's oldest rivalry for the second most played series in the FBS, behind only Wisconsin and Minnesota's annual battle for the Paul Bunyan's axe. Not only is it old, but Auburn versus Georgia is typically hotly contested. Although Georgia has ruled in the modern era, you don't have to look too far back of Auburn being able to compete with them. pretty regularly, and Georgia does lead the series in that. One that has just recently become a rivalry again. It did stop when Texas A&M left the Big 12 to go to the SEC, mainly because they didn't want to schedule each other. And again, I don't know if it's one-sided or not. But Texas versus Texas A&M, aka the Lone Star Showdown, we were able to get that back. I believe a couple years ago, maybe even it was a couple years ago. It was like their first year back. We were able to get it back into the fold, and Texas ended up beating Texas A&M last year too, and then they're going to face again this year. So it says Texas and Texas A&M hadn't seen each other on the field in 13 years until Texas moved to the SEC as well. Only 3 rivalries in the SEC have more than 118 games between the Longhorns and the Aggies. And apparently the feelings are so intense that each school mentions the other in its fight songs. They did the comparison of college football's version of Kendrick Lamar versus Drake beef. And Texas leads the series by a large margin with almost 80 wins, and Texas A&M's just under 40. Joy says Texas A&M sucks. Or is it Texas or Texas A&M? Because I'm going to be honest, with what Texas A&M did to LSU last year, and honestly even the year before that, but especially last year, I am not a fan of the whole Giga Maggies. Like Texas A&M, if they lose like 6 games and can't even go bowling, I'm okay with that. It doesn't hurt my feelings. Another one that is probably Texas. Okay, gotcha. So one that I feel is probably one of the biggest, and to me, I feel like they've amplified it even more ever since 2022. Now, I know that's been 4 years ago, but the Hendon Hooker-led Tennessee Volunteers team, Alabama comes in. It is absolutely hyped on College game day. Pat McAfee is absolutely rooting for him. Peyton Manning, a Tennessee alumni, is absolutely rooting for him. The atmosphere and everything, even on TV, was absolutely crazy. But Alabama versus Tennessee, the third Saturday in October. Alabama has won a majority of the contests, dating all the way back to 2007, and Nick Saban's first season in Tuscaloosa. But prior to that, Alabama only held about a 5-game wins ahead in the series. And Tennessee actually held a majority of the lead from the 90s all the way to the 2000s. But as it currently stands, Alabama leads, I believe now with the last couple of years, they lead over 60 to, I think, Tennessee's 40, if I did my math right. Joy, I'm a sucker for a smart Aggie engineer. I mean, they're an engineer. Like, they're smart. I mean, that's just smart right there. As far as them being Aggie, me. But I do get it. One of the other ones that, again, I feel is personal, and again, it just kind of adds to my dislike for Alabama. Alabama versus LSU, the first Saturday in November. Now, to also give you an idea of the SEC, and a lot of these conferences, there used to be divisions. And for the SEC, it was the SEC West versus the SEC East. Now, geographically, for the most part, that made sense until Mizzou and Texas A&M came in, and then they made it weird. So I'm not going to try to explain that and make it confusing, because I'm going to be 100% honest, it doesn't really make sense, because they didn't want to move. They didn't want to move teams that were already in the SEC West over to the SEC East, where it would have made more sense. So they kept one in the SEC West, but then they moved a technically West team over into the East, and it made no sense. I'm not going to try to confuse anybody or do anything with that. So to give you an idea, so the SEC West existed for over 32 years. Alabama and LSU combined to win that division 22 times between both of them. So you got to think, there's only 10 years where another team won the SEC West that wasn't named Alabama or LSU. And then one of those two teams had made it to the SEC championship in the last few years as well. Typically, recently, it's been more either Georgia or Alabama, but LSU has been one of the few teams that has not only been able to sneak in there, but also been able to win it. Both teams have been ranked in the AP top 25 in 16 out of the last 18 installments of the series. And then for whatever reason, whenever they face, there's always something big. Alabama does unfortunately hold a hefty lead in the series with almost 60 wins. LSU hasn't even broke the 30 mark yet, unfortunately. That's kind of the other thing. Some people consider a very quote-unquote one-sided rivalry like that not really a rivalry. Some do, some don't. It kind of depends on who you ask. Another one that can say that concerns and contains my Tigers, Florida versus LSU. They've met only 70 times, but no one can say that they haven't been eventful. It's hard not to love a rivalry that features a game in which Florida defensive back Marco Wilson throws a cleat to 15, leading to a 15-yard penalty and a 57-yard game-winning field goal for LSU. Is also ridiculously competitive and has featured several clashes between national championship caliber teams. At the time, it was Florida led the series 33-31. That was in 24. I believe they're both 1-1 since then. So if I'm doing my math right, I believe that would mean Florida leads 34-32. Again, if I did my math right. My Louisiana teams, I know, Joy. And then one that, again, it's considered a rivalry. It's very, very one-sided. But from what I've heard, and even from what I've seen on TV, just watching it kind of in passing, Kentucky versus Tennessee, a huge rivalry. Kentucky historically in football has not been the greatest. It's not like they're a perennial powerhouse. It's not even like they've been a perennial powerhouse in the last few years. Tennessee, unfortunately, hasn't made it to the SEC championship game since 2007. Kentucky hasn't competed for a title since the divisional split, but they just have an absolute dislike for each other. One of them, I know Tennessee typically has the orange and white checkerboard, and then Kentucky kind of copied that with the blue and white checkerboard. And as it stands right now, Tennessee has a very comfortable lead of, again, at the time, 83-26. I don't believe Kentucky has won that matchup against them in the last couple of years. Even if they have, they still haven't hit the 30 mark yet. So, again, very one-sided. Tennessee, I will say, is a fun fact, kind of one of the few teams that in the SEC that I also don't mind and I kind of root for, just because of some good friends that I know, some guys that I used to serve with in the military. They either go to Tennessee or have gone to Tennessee, and they root for Tennessee. Having gone down to Tennessee, I liked it. My mom was born in Tennessee, so I have a lot of ties and reasons to like Tennessee. And again, they're kind of one of those teams that I never felt like the disrespect from Tennessee that I have from like some of the other teams and whatnot. So Tennessee always kind of gets a pass in my book as far as SEC teams and who I would truly root for. If LSU was out of the playoffs, who else I would root for in the SEC? It would probably be Tennessee. Another one that, again, now that Texas has joined into the SEC, it can be more of a regular rivalry, but it is technically an old Southwest Conference matchup of Arkansas versus Texas. I don't believe they have faced since. Maybe they have since Texas joined. But Texas does lead the series pretty comfortably, 56-23. Another one, especially one, and again, if your significant other loves college football and follows it, this is going to be an absolutely huge matchup. Ole Miss versus LSU, the Magnolia Bowl. Now, part of the reason behind this, LSU's new head coach, Lane Kiffin, was just previously the head coach of the Ole Miss Rebels. So recently, in fact, that he left the team as they were going into their playoff run to go coach the LSU Tigers. Now, in Lane's defense, he did want to stay at Ole Miss and continue to coach them through the playoffs. However, the AD and the president of Ole Miss didn't believe that that was appropriate because they were afraid of Lane poaching players to take with him to LSU, especially if they had any eligibility and could transfer in the portal. And Ole Miss kind of feels slighted because they were willing to offer him the same amount of money that he got at LSU. But Lane felt that the resources, the brand power, the prestige, pretty much everything that you would look for as far as intangibles, the long history set up, and the legacy of LSU was more attractive than Ole Miss. Now, he's since come out with some crazy stuff as to why he left Ole Miss, why he had trouble recruiting there. Again, that's it. If you do the research, I will let you be the decision and the judge of that. I don't want to try to influence your thoughts on it. To me, it's just okay, Lane. Whatever you say. Like this is just the beginning of the Lane train. But LSU does have a pretty comfortable lead, even though Ole Miss did get the win last year. They've kind of traded blows back and forth. LSU does lead the series with over 60 wins to Ole Miss's little over 40. Another big LSU rivalry that they have is with Arkansas. And again, they actually played long before Arkansas even joined the SEC. They kind of played sporadically through the years, all the way up until 1992 when the Razorbacks finally moved over in 91. The SEC even introduced a trophy, the Battle for the Boot, formed by the outline of Arkansas and Louisiana in 1996 to help bring some prestige into the rivalry. Razorback fans have had plenty of animosity towards LSU, though the feelings may not be entirely reciprocated with the Tigers' already full ledger of sworn enemies. And again, prior to the last couple of years, LSU leads the series with over 40 wins to Arkansas's 20, a little over 20. And again, another Southwest Classic from the move. You have Texas A&M versus Arkansas. This one has been pretty regular since Texas A&M joined in 2012, and they actually only put a pause on it. So they left for the SEC in 91. The rivalry is officially put on ice until 2009, when it was brought back as the Southwest Classic. The name stuck following the Texas A&M's move to the SEC in 2012. So it was only gone for a few years. But since then, Arkansas actually leads the series with a little over 40 wins to Texas A&M's a little over 30. And then again, another one of these, it's a very one-sided rivalry, but it is there. Tennessee versus Vanderbilt. They're two in-state rivalries. They've played each other for a long time. They're right at 118 games and counting. There are only 4 SEC rivalries that have actually been played more than that. And technically, Vanderbilt did dominate the early matchups 100 years ago, but has done well to secure 5 wins since 2012. But the Tennessee's considerable resources have created a gap in between the two schools that might steadily grow in the NIL era. No, I do remember, I believe last year, Vandy was able to get the win against Tennessee, but Tennessee still leads the series by they're almost at 80 wins to Vandy's a little over 30. I don't have it on here on the graphic, but it is, I guess, technically a rivalry. This is one that, I've heard of it, but it's not really the first thing I think of when it comes to rivalry. You have Georgia versus South Carolina. South Carolina considers Clemson its biggest foe, and of course the Clemson Tigers are in the ACC. Georgia and South Carolina don't necessarily get along. It's very one-sided. Georgia leads with over 50 wins. To South Carolina hasn't even cracked 20 yet, so it's not exactly a big rivalry. Another one that's on here is Mizzou versus Oklahoma. Again, they played a lot when they were both at the Big 12. The annual series ended in 95. They really haven't played each other much since 2011. Apparently, there was a rivalry trophy, the Tiger Sooner Peace Pipe, and it went missing in 1975. The Sooners lead the series pretty easily, with over 60 wins, almost 70, to Mizzou's little over 20. Then you have Arkansas versus Mizzou. Again, they liked clinging to a lot of the more geographical rivalries and whatnot. It's conceived the Battle Line Trophy, and Mizzou has won 8 of the last 10 games. And Mizzou actually leads the very kind of short, small series. I thought this would be a little bit longer. Mizzou leads over 10 wins to Arkansas only has 4. Now, again, that might have changed the last couple of years. I don't remember off the top of my head, but it is possible. And then I actually failed to put this on here. Darn it. I thought I did. Mizzou versus South Carolina, the Mayor's Cup. And again, this mainly happened because Mizzou transitioned into the SEC. And if I do remember correctly, Mizzou was the quote-unquote Western team that they moved over to the SEC East. And then as a result, that means they were going to face a lot of the SEC East teams like South Carolina. It's also known as the Battle of Columbia because there are 2 of the few universities that they are named in the exact same cities, just in completely different states. Because you have Columbia, South Carolina, and you have Columbia, Missouri, where both of these schools play and are hosted at. Apparently, Mizzou needed to manufacture some bad blood when it left the Big 12 behind and hopefully grow some roots into the SEC transition. And Mizzou currently leads the series 9-5, and that was back in 2024. So again, the SEC is probably one of my favorites. Don't get me wrong, I like the Big Ten. There are rivalries there. But for me, the Big Ten, it feels like there's only a couple really deep-hated rivalries here and there, like Michigan versus Michigan State, Ohio State versus Michigan, Wisconsin versus Minnesota. You have Wisconsin versus Iowa versus Nebraska, Nebraska versus Iowa, like kind of more of those. But then after that, you could say Indiana versus Purdue. It's like that's kind of deep, but again, that's more just for like fans here in Indiana. So the rivalries to me aren't as deep in like hatred as it is for the SEC. And that's probably what I like about it the most. And that's what a lot of people care for the most with the SEC. It is that it values more of the traditional college football of what a lot of us have grown up with, what a lot of us watched for, the last 20 plus years has been SEC football. It's been the SEC. It's been more of the consistent kind of the thing that when you turn on the TV, no matter how much the world changes, the SEC is still there and the SEC still does what the SEC does. So that is all of the Power 4 conferences, the ACC, the Big 10, the Big 12, and the SEC. I'll be honest, I have a few ideas of what I want to do next week to hopefully keep the College Football for Dummies series going. If you want, let me know in the comments what you think here on YouTube, Facebook, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. You can connect with me anywhere on social media. Let me know what you think if you would want me to do an episode as far as the Group of 6 conferences. And when I say Group of 6, there's so many. I'm going to try to remember all of them off the top of my head. There's the Pac-12. There's the AAC. There is the Sun Belt. There is the there's Conference USA. There's the MAC. There is the Mountain West Conference. There is the Mountain West, AAC, Pac-12, MAC. I definitely feel like I'm forgetting. So I'm definitely forgetting at least one, maybe 2 conferences. That's very, very possible. I'll have them all if you want that. I even thought about doing an episode maybe to kind of discuss the top 25 as far as where some of the ideologies that are behind that. I could also talk about some of the independents as far as Notre Dame. I could talk about the new college football playoff schedule as far as what some of the rules are for being able to get in, not get into that. A few different things. Let me know. Otherwise, I may just kind of end the College Football for Dummies series here. We'll have a few more episodes in between now and then, of course, when the season first starts, may even take a little bit of a break in there. We'll kind of see, but nonetheless, appreciate everybody tuning in. Joy, go Tigers. Appreciate all the love and support. Please like, share, subscribe. Wherever you watch this, wherever you listen to it, wherever you get your podcasts, wherever you just want to hear my voice. If you do, I appreciate it. You can pretty much find me anywhere at Inside the Hoosier Mind. And again, big shout out to Military Broadcast Radio for everything that they do, not only for me, but all the veterans out there, giving them a voice, letting them, be able to tell their stories, get them the equipment to be able to do that, get them the cool graphics, teach them how to do this. It's an absolutely wonderful thing. So definitely check them out at mbradio.us. And then big shout out to Gunfighter Beer Company, Marine out of South Carolina. Does all local, all natural ingredients, ships everywhere here in the U.S. Absolute great guy. I don't make any money off of him. I don't get any profit. So if you think, oh, he's just doing this because he wants to get paid, I don't get paid none. It's all free just because I like to talk sports. I'm just saying. I just like to talk sports. But appreciate everybody tuning in. We will see y'all next week. Bye, Joy. I appreciate you tuning in, ma'am. And we will see y'all later.
Hi, I'm Beaker with Military Broadcast Radio TV. We're your virtual MWR, bringing veterans radio, podcasts, gaming, animation, 3D printing, and a community that never leaves you behind. Download our Roku or mobile app today.
Wisdom to share if you listen this week, so pull up a chair and stay for a spell. We're heading down a trail where good stories dwell.